Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 63. This week we have your thoughts on Peter Capaldi's possible portrayal of the Doctor, and I'll be reviewing two more of the 50th anniversary audios from the Destiny of the Doctor series. Oh, and I should warn you, this episode does contain some possible Season 8...
Spoilers!
Spoilers!
Spoilers! Spoilers!
This week's feedback comes from Robert Curd and Andrew Marmot. While it's not related to any aspect of the show last week, or this week for that matter, it stems from something that I've been thinking about myself for a while, and when I saw a picture of Jon Pertwee this week, I just had to post it and canvass your opinions.
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty. A box?
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
Earlier this week I saw a picture of Jon Pertwee on the set of The Time Warrior, striking a pose very similar to that picture of Peter Capaldi. You know the one I mean, the one where Capaldi has his arm outstretched. Looking at it, I was reminded of my own thoughts when Capaldi was cast as the Doctor. Long before I'd heard it in the press or heard anyone else commenting on it, I thought about Capaldi bringing a Pertwee-esque performance, and I wanted to know what you all thought about that. It's no secret that Jon Pertwee is to date my favourite Doctor, so the thought of Capaldi being a Pertwee for the modern era really excites me. But here's what you thought. Robert Curd said, "He'll be himself, and I'll watch him then decide. Not many have hit the ground running with a fully evolved Doctor, so if his first season isn't brilliant, then okay." Andrew Marmot commented, "I think it's a wait and see. There have been so many layered references to the show's history in the last couple of years, I think it's fair to say that some of the harking back to number 3 is deliberate. Perhaps that's Capaldi's Doctor. I don't think the show will become much more self-referential, or it would risk alienating the more casual, like the show but don't know the backstory kind of viewer. Still, I'm looking forward to his arrival, and to hear the old beast growl." Thank you both for your comments. Robert, I have to say I'm with you all the way, and I didn't intend my comments to sound judgmental in any way. Capaldi's a brilliant actor, and whether he plays it like Pertwee or not, I'm looking forward to the return of the show and a new take on the lead. Andrew, knowing the Moff at least by reputation as we do since he took over, I'm sure you're right about some of those Third Doctor postulating references being deliberate. We all know from the number of references to the classic series since Moffat took over that he's both a classic show fan and that he's keen to make the point that classic and new era Who are one and the same show, but that's a debate for another episode. Indeed, according to numerous sources this week, it would appear that the Doctor will be returning to the planet Sarn, where the 5th Doctor story Planet of Fire took place. All that said, I can't help thinking that you're so right about losing a chunk of the audience if the show becomes too self-referential. So while there's a place for nostalgia and classic Who fan in me wants to see a Pertwee for the modern era in Capaldi's performance, like Robert Curd, I'll be watching when it happens, and I'm sure loving it, whatever Capaldi's performance is like. And now on to the promised reviews of Adventures 8 and 9 from the Destiny of the Doctor series of 50th anniversary audio adventures.
What a sentimental old thing this TARDIS is.
And it's in the TARDIS that we find the 8th Doctor and Charlie, at the start of Destiny of the Doctor number 8, enemy aliens.
Someone playing Rossini. Yes, that might be it, elaborated the doctor. Someone's always playing Rossini. He's a hugely popular component of the light orchestral repertoire. We need to check concert houses, nightclubs, jazz venues, anywhere someone might be playing Rossini. His eyes glinted. Let's make like blue-bottomed bluebottle, shall we? Helpless to resist, Charlie picked up her cavalry officer's heels and followed the doctor as he galloped off into the West End night.
Oh.
The next thing Charlie knew, pretty much, it was morning, in an unfamiliar flat on an unfamiliar couch. Well, where the devil... Oh, will you stop it with the Rossini?
Sorry. Did I wake you? Didn't realise I was doing it. Thing about that tune, once it's in your head...
It's hard to get it out, I know.
Well, it's your fault, miss. You were humming it in your sleep, best part of the night. Suppose I must have just picked it up, like I seem to have picked up... you.
Excuse me? You've picked up no one, sir.
Oh, Lord, I didn't mean... No, sorry. Don't you remember getting here? From the music hall?
Wherever here is, no.
Just my little old bachelor flat in Portland Place. Look, that's a broadcasting house.
And the little old bachelor is?
Hilary Hammond. At your service.
Now, to say this story is instantly forgettable would be a little unfair. It took me a good 5 minutes to completely forget the characters, plot, and the fact that I'd even listened to this story. The irony is that while this story is drudgingly boring, the difference between this and the Fourth Doctor's story from the same range is that at least some of the plot of the Babelsphere has stuck in my mind. In Enemy Aliens, the plot is not only slow-moving and pedestrian, but the characters are somewhat flat as well. It's a shame, really, as India Fisher, who's reading this story, does her very best with a poor story. Sadly, her Eighth Doctor impression leaves something to be desired, though, and she even struggles to recapture the character of Charlie Pollard, who she played so well in the Eighth Doctor audio adventures, and then alongside Colin Baker in a series of Sixth Doctor audios. Would I recommend this story? Yes, but only if you're a completionist.
Someone strode through the smoke, a tall figure sweeping through the chaos, wide-brimmed fedora, obsidian black cloak billowing out behind. One of Wolfsbane's men rushed forward, gun up. The cloaked stranger lifted a leather-gloved hand. Kobold's blue energy sparked from the newcomer's fingers, hitting the heavy in the chest, knocking him back. The guard was dead before his body thumped down beside Rose. He hadn't just been shot, he'd been desiccated. His withered corpse smoked, all sallow cheeks and wrinkled skin. A shadow fell over Rose. Stomach knotting tighter, she looked up, straight into a featureless mask.
Justice will be served,
the stranger hissed. There was nowhere to run. Looming over Rose, the masked man raised his arm. Death-dealing fingers pointed at her. Screwing up her eyes, Rose waited for the blast.
Justice for all.
Miss Tyler, this is...
Inspector George Dixon, the newcomer announced. New, Scotland Yard.
From Earth.
Oblivious to the Commissioner's glare, Inspector Dixon plonked himself on a chair opposite Rose. I'm helping the locals investigate this whisper bloke. Saw him, didn't you? Rose leaned in. Yeah, at the club. Dixon mirrored her. Fantastic. What was it like?
I was asking Miss Tyler about her life before New Vegas. We don't have any records.
Course, silly me. The inspector clicked his fingers and snatched up McNeil's datapad. His fingers ran across the touchscreen for just a few seconds. Found her. Full rundown of Miss Tyler's movements for the last 5 years. He passed the pad to McNeil. Must have been a glitch. Happens, doesn't it? Files get deleted. Emails lost.
But she has a link to the Whisper.
She does? Asked the inspector. He attempted to attack her, nothing more.
We don't know that.
I do. Checked her records twice. The inspector leant forward, hitting a button on the pad. As you can see, Miss Tyler had a problem on Grachic Major. Need to talk to her about that. McNeil's shoulders sagged. In private? Earth business.
We'll need a full statement.
Leave it to me, Chief. McNeil turned and stalked out of the interview room. Rose went to speak, but the inspector shook his head. He slipped his hand into his jacket pocket.
That's better. Don't want any eavesdroppers.
The doctor grinned widely.
Hello, Rose Tyler.
Doctor Who, Night of the Whisper, performed by Nicholas Briggs with John Schwab as McNeil.
By contrast, Night of the Whisperer is far and away the best in the range so far. Not only is the story typical of the Ninth Doctor era, but it's fast-paced, action-packed and very character-driven. Nick Briggs, who's reading this one, does a brilliant Ninth Doctor impression, and his Captain Jack isn't that bad either. He does, however, struggle a little bit to capture Rose properly, but by the time you realise that, you don't care, as you're being taken so far into the story that you're able to instantly recognise the characters, not only from the way they've been written, but the actions they're taking within the story. If you've not listened to any others from the Destiny of the Doctor range, you really should listen to this one. It stands alone very well, but as with all the others in the series, there's the customary appearance from... but I'll say no more, for fear of...
Spoilers.
Spoilers!
Spoilers. Spoilers.
Oh, goodbye, my dear chap. I must say I've had the time of my lives.
And that's all for this week. Thanks once again for tuning in to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. And if you have any feedback on either Peter Capaldi's coming performance as the Doctor, or the reviews in this week's show, or any other Who-related feedback for that matter, I'd love to hear from you, either on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast on Facebook, or by email at respectthething@hotmail.com. Don't forget you can also keep up with the show now on YouTube. Just search Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast, and there you'll find episodes of the show right back to the start. Next week I'm starting a 5-part series looking at more of the classic Who aliens, starting with the Kralls.
We require local knowledge, so we may strike swiftly with the utmost accuracy at the centers of human civilization.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.